Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco from Macabre Daily, and I am so excited to be joined by Ashley Lauren Elrod, I've got a list of titles for you here. You're an actor, you're a producer, you're a writer, you're also a founder of Visionary Women Productions. So, Ashley Lauren, it's really nice to have you with us today.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure. And I know that we got connected kind of disparately through a film that you were a part of called Two Knocks on a Door. So be curious in a little bit how you got involved with that production before we get into some other questions.
Yes, I was contacted by Eric and Sean. I mean, I guess now going on 2 years ago when we filmed, and it was like I think through Mandy. It was like they were auditioning through there, and they contacted me directly. I didn't even send in anything for it, or knew about the project at first, and then they asked if I was interested, in potentially being a part, and we went through a couple different conversations, and then I got the role.
It's outstanding. Yeah, I know. We try and cover as far as short films go. I find oftentimes they don't get as much coverage from the major outlets because it's just harder to get distribution.
Yeah.
It's harder to find an audience. That way, you have to often defer to your own marketing tactics. So I was really glad that I think one of my colleagues here, Lowell, was connected to the filmmakers. So that's kind of how we all got acquainted.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a great film. And they're trying to do an extension of it, and an anthology series, hopefully in the next year or so, that I'll also be able to be a part of. So yeah, hopefully fingers crossed it'll work
Uh,
out.
all appendages crossed for that happening because the more
Yeah.
anthologies, the better. That's one of my like go-to subgenres because you're always going to win with at least one story.
Yeah,
Even if not all of them work, there's going to be one that does.
absolutely.
So I know Ashley Lauren that you've got your own production company, Visionary Women Productions, and I'm curious to know just a little bit more about how you came around to founding that because we see so much. Well, one, I love that your website is all very much focused on representation and kind of
Yeah.
the mission statement being focused on promoting more diversity in Hollywood, but also providing more perspective. So, what inspired you to kind of take this route of going down and creating your own production company?
Yeah, I feel like asked or answered this question a lot days. It's so funny, but yes, I started it actually in college over 13 years ago. I started it my senior year. And it kind of started off as like two different entities. One was literally getting together with a group of my super talented friends and just basically shooting things. And like one thing led to another, and we were getting picked up by editorials such as Vogue and GQ and Essence and Vibe magazine. And it was kind of just like, we were doing it for fun and we were just doing it to build our portfolios and to learn. And I ended up becoming, yeah, the producer of it all and just like making sure everything was coordinated and then just submitting it to different opportunities. And we actually ended up getting a lot of traction that way. And then the second portion was fulfilling a need at my school. I was double majoring in acting and technical theater, and learning all of the scope of everything with the industry. But I was also already signed, as well, a signed actor at the same time. So I was already on sets. I was already understanding what the industry was and what you had to do and things you had to prepare. But we weren't really being taught that in school. So
Right.
long story short, I decided to take all of my wisdom that I was learning, as well as my connections with my agents and such, and I created packages for my colleagues, with headshots and comp cards and like a template for their resume and cover letter, and being able to do industry consultations with my agents, potentially getting signed. So overnight, it literally became like a business. And yeah, that's how it started.
That's amazing. In fact, I think you've hit on something really important, which is that, I have having been through a film school program as well at my university, one of the things they don't teach you about is the business. They
Yes.
don't tell you kind of how, regardless of what area of filmmaking you want to go into or any kind of really entertainment industry, avenue, they don't really tell you how to market yourself. And again, I'm gonna age myself here, but it's been, I don't know, over a 15 years since I've been in school.
Yeah.
I don't know if the curriculum's changed, but I do know that there was a lot of emphasis on like theory and
Yeah.
kind of aesthetics and history as well as production, but not a lot on, hey, how do I actually get a film made, or how do I
Yeah.
talk to distributors or get myself out there?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely was a huge gap. Hopefully they've changed it by now and these types of programs because yeah, it's just definitely needed. It's something that, especially now people need to know about. So, yeah, it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to learn how to use an algorithm or figure it out. So I feel like
Right.
there's so much value right now in just learning how to market yourself, let alone understanding the technology that supports how we get out there.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and I know you're currently raising funds for a short film, Verge of Remembrance. So I'm curious to know a little bit. I've read, so spoiler, I've read your site, and I've read all about the production. It's got a very personal kind of backstory to it, but I'd love to hear kind of in your own words, why now with this story, and where you are in the process.
Yeah, so we are fundraising. It's been slow moving for the past 7 months, but I believe we're gonna get there. I personally am connected to Verge of Remembrance. I wrote it actually literally in like under 6 hours. I wrote
Oh
Verge of
wow.
Remembrance. Yeah, and it actually started off originally as a 30-page something script, and everyone kept saying you either need to cut it down or you should do a feature. Which anyone who reads it still says you should do this as a feature, which is a separate part of the conversation. But yeah, I wrote it in under 6 hours. It was like out of a kind of like trauma being released, I guess you can say, out of me. And yeah, it has to deal with child abuse. I am a child abuse survivor. I guess you could say multi-child abuse survivor, different abuses that happened in my childhood. And I'm a PTSD warrior. So the whole movie is based on real themes of my life of navigating childhood trauma and PTSD as an adult, and being able to raise awareness and break more stigma surrounding those issues. I'm a huge advocate, speaker, and leader for those epidemics, I guess you can
Yeah.
say. And I really am on the ground, also an advocacy to be able to raise awareness in different ways, such as creating films, because it's such a powerful medium that people can ingest easily, to be able to enjoy and be inspired, but also I try to mesh that with an actual mission, which is Project Can Hope, which we talked about on my website, which is for the Chicago Children's Advocacy Center. I have been a part of the organization for over 10 years. I was actually helped by them in one of my cases growing up. So it's a very just deep full circle coming around to raise awareness and help others. And 10% of the donations are going back to the center to help build the first ever co-network space for SADV and sex trafficking survivors in our country.
That's amazing. I think one of the things that right now in horror particularly, there is a huge emphasis on marrying or using metaphor to describe kind of the supernatural with kind of
Yes.
the realness of our daily lives, and how to be candid, the awfulness, right, that kind of
Yeah.
exists in daily life.
Yeah.
But a lot of times those stories are really there to either make you feel really bad or really good.
Yes.
They leave you. That's how they leave you. And
Yeah.
I think that the fact that you're taking this the next step by not just putting out your story, but also using it as a platform to help organizations that you've worked with, that you've been a part of, and benefited from, I think really puts kind of the heart of like of advocacy and kind of creativity together. So I was really drawn to that when I was reading your site. That again, not only is this a passion, a labor of love, but also a labor of giving back, which is nice
Yeah.
to see.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's something that's like about visionary woman. That's the DNA of the company, and being able to do that on a major level, in the coming years here. And we've been able to do that in a lot of ways with Delta Airlines and Dove for some awesome narrative campaigns. So that's something we just want to continue to, really ride the wave on, and make a dent in. And also, honestly, it's a new business model that's not being done by production companies. So I'm excited about that, and I pride myself on it because I think hopefully it's going to create a cycle that more people start following and being able to figure out, okay, we can actually help make the world a better place, and we can raise awareness, but also actively like help heal communities through funding and through these projects that we're creating through strategic partnerships. So yeah.
I mean, it allows people to be activists without feeling like they can't be. You know, it's often
Yeah.
felt like if you're not at the front line of a conversation or you're not out there, quite literally, protesting or holding signs, you sometimes feel like, how can I contribute to this? But
Yes.
I think you are onto something as a trailblazer in that, we're seeing this in the commerce area where you have companies like Bombas who will donate socks to unhoused
Yeah.
people, and there are companies in that space in the commerce area that are doing this. But again, production companies, this is the first I've heard of it, and I think you are really setting a precedent that people can have an impact while telling their stories and finding an outlet for their creativity, which meets a
Yeah.
lot of different needs all at once.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. Thank you.
and as far as the you're kind of pivoting a little bit more into like, this is obviously a very personal story, but it also is based in horror.
Yeah.
What's your relationship with the horror genre? Are you been a fan for a long time, or is this something you've kind of got into over the, what wasn't it first, but then got into it later?
Yeah, no, I've loved specifically I've loved psychological thrillers and I've loved horror too. Like I grew up on all of the classics and like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Scream and I Know What You Did Last Summer. Like all of those things are still my favorites. And I've just always loved it. I've always loved like the mystery about it all in a lot of ways and figuring out like who done it, in regards to these situations. But also I've just always like loved it. It's just always been a big thing of mine. I've loved reading like James Patterson books. Like I grew up on him and being obsessed with those books. A lot of mystery books were like my thing of growing up and psychological thrillers and stuff. So I've always been a fan. This actually, I mean, like I said, I wrote it under 6 hours and like I wasn't planning on it being a psychological thriller. It just came out that way. Like I didn't have an outline. I didn't know who the characters were going to be. It was literally just like I wrote it out very quickly and in one sitting and it ended up being a psychological thriller. And after I read it back, I was like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, it just ended up being that. And I think it's nice though because for this kind of what we're going for is more like Gothica meets the others in the orphanage. Um and I love those movies and it's really going to be about seeing that PTSD and that surreal state because that's how I always feel it has been for me is kind of surreal or like you don't you have to figure out like sometimes in those moments what's real, what's not, and make sure as you're coming down from whatever is triggering you, that you're like staying grounded, finding that ground again. So that's how you're going to feel throughout the whole movie. And the people who have read the script have said like it's been like a hauntingly like healing and intense film that they've read, like script that they've read, which has been awesome to hear. Because at the end you also find closure. Like you actually,
Right.
it's not like there's a slasher coming back at the end or something. It's actually like you have closure at the end. And some people said they cried or teared up. So it's definitely going to take you on a journey, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are movies like it comes to mind like Jacob's Ladder being the most kind of
Yes.
pressing one that really, doesn't explicitly talk about PTSD, but for all intents and purposes, I think that was the point
Yes.
um of the narrative. And I think now we have such a greater awareness and appreciation of things like PTSD, of, sexual assault and domestic violence. So the awareness is certainly going to work in favor, but I'm curious to know beyond kind of your own personal connection to these stories, what else? I noticed on the site you also kind of have a few other films that you're currently funding or trying or producing at the moment. So what do you look for in projects that, are that you want to support and get behind?
Yeah, so all of those projects on the site right now are ones that I'm currently developing, writing, and that I am just getting ready to produce with the team. I Every single one of them have been pretty much like something that I've gone through or someone close to me has gone through, or it's going to be an exploration of things that are a culmination of just like life in general right now for a lot of people. So like the Finding You Again movie, I'm actually excited about because that's going to be about a group of female friends and they're in their mid 30s who are all kind of like not hitting a midlife order, I guess quarter life crisis or whatever, but they're experiencing the world right now and understanding like this is not what I expected, Yeah, I'm not married, I don't have kids, all this stuff. Do I want to have kids? Do I want to get married? The dating scene sucks, and it's gonna be like a whole like culmination of like, wow, this is not at all what was fed to us in the movies and like in the stories we read growing up or through our parents. So it's going to be really just a lot of experiences and a lot of conversations I've had with my friends, like my friends saying, I'm probably never going to get married. I'm going to have a kid on my own. So it's going to be like all of those things happening due to the fact of like, yeah, my friends and I and the conversations and the struggles that we've had, which I think will be very exciting. And The Reckoning is actually going to be a film that's actually going to be fully a biopic based on my actual true story and after my survival of my last unalived attempt. Um, so that is going to be something that's very deep and much more like much different. That's also going to be a very surreal film though, which I'm super excited about. I'm very excited to play around with what that's going to look and feel like, for people to kind of really understand what it is to be in that state, because I want to try to get that across. So I'm looking forward to a lot of things that we're developing. And Legend of Princess Ronkonkoma, actually, I assistant directed. It's coming out. The premiere is August 4th, and that's going to be coming out later on in the year. We got a distribution deal and stuff for that, so that'll be super exciting. It's a horror thriller. It's based on the legend of Princess Ronkonkoma in Ronkonkoma, about how she comes back every year and grabs a man because she was killed in the water. They were killed in the water. So yeah, that'll be fun. That's going to be a fun one that I'm excited about. But uh finding the projects, it really has to be something diverse for me. It has to be something that I feel needs to be put out there. I have a lot of people that come to me with projects sometimes, and I always love to be able to give people a chance to see if I can help them produce it. I I definitely am very picky and specific. I guess you can say I'm tired of the same old stories. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
We don't need another, like I
Generic
don't
slasher or something, you know?
yeah, just like we just don't need another like bogus like Hollywood just crap that they spent millions of dollars on and wasn't that great, you know?
Right.
So it's like if I'm gonna help you like find money for something, it definitely has to be something that's meaningful in some type of way. And even if it's just like a fun slasher, like what's different about it, And like I like to be specific about what the writing looks like, like we don't need half naked girls like in slashers just to be there anymore. It's
Yeah.
so it's I really look specifically for like a quality of content, for sure.
I mean, I think it's important to have a set of kind of a vision for what you want to participate in, especially these days, because we cover a lot of horror movies
Yeah.
on the site, and it's I think the best part about it is that it demonstrates that the opportunity to get your work out there has increased, but
Yeah.
so has the noise, and so has the business that supports kind of and this has been around for as long as I can remember, the VOD type business where it's
Yeah.
always like we're going to continue to produce content that's kind of adjacent to what's happening in the zeitgeist. So we, even if it's not the world's best content, it's still going to earn X amount so we can justify it. It's almost like gambling, right?
Yeah.
But I also, was curious to know more about, I think a lot of folks, I don't, well, I'm not going to generalize. I think there are people who struggle similarly with things that have happened to them and are trying to reconcile it. And the conversation, or at least the destigmatization of mental health discussions over the past, particularly 5 or 6 years have been really helpful. But I'm always wondering, and you think about how you've taken your, kind of your life and your experiences. What experience, what advice would you give to others who are trying to find ways to capture kind of their unique experience or something that's happened to them and turn it into something maybe more positive or propelling for their creativity?
Yeah, I mean, I first off think a lot of people don't end up doing certain things because of fear and, like wondering like what people will think about them or, people closest to them, may judge or not be happy, that they did it. But I always say, art is definitely something that I think was always created to be healing for oneself and then to also
Mm,
be able to share with the world. And it's always been something that's been a source of activism and truth telling. From back in the day of Shakespeare's time, that's why art was created. So I think, not being afraid and pushing past the fear to be able to honor yourself and what you're trying to do and your why, in on your journey, I think is big. I think just being able to be honest and understanding that not everyone's probably going to like it, but if you believe and know that this will help like several other people, go for it. I think it's just all about pushing past that fear and understanding, why you're doing what you're doing and letting the rest just play itself out. You can't be responsible for other people's reactions of
mm,
things. I think that's something too that I've learned for so long. And telling my story and speaking all over the country about, these very personal things that I know have helped several other survivors. And, it's been interesting because, like, my dad's very supportive, but like my mom has not, it's like, but my mom hasn't been, and she's not cool really about like me sharing everything that's happened, and I haven't even shared a fraction of what's happened to me, but uh but it's like I can't that's not my problem. Like I love and honor my parents and my family, but I also honor my healing journey and myself to the
yeah.
first degree. And I know that so many people are out here looking for that outlet. They're looking for that healing themselves. They're looking for people like me who are telling these stories boldly and saying, wow, if she can do that, I definitely like want to try. And I think that keeps me going specifically is getting those stories from other people, hearing them, and how they've been inspired to do something or tell their story in a little way. So I think just, yeah, look at it that way. You're helping other lives. And if you believe it's going to be helpful to really, say yes to that.
I mean, as a recovering people pleaser, I I resonate with a lot of what you said because you are right. We can't control how others react, but we can control how we show up and how we react to things. So I think that's, wise words for a lot of folks out there that are considering, how do I proceed through my journey, whether it's through processing an experience that has left some sort of trauma, or whether it's just trying to get over our own hurdles that we put in front of ourselves to do the things
Yeah.
we want to do. I mean, as someone who's about to be 40 years old, it's something where it took me this long to figure out I wanted to be a part of a website, right? Or I wanted to take part. So I think there's no time limit in going back to your mentioning with the project you're focused on with the women you've had in your life about all the stuff they're going through. It's the same thing. It's like we all kind of assume there's this there that things will go a certain way, and when they don't, we're left disappointed instead of realizing that maybe the expectation set wasn't the right one.
Yeah.
And so how can we adjust, pivot, and find something within ourselves to keep ourselves happy?
Yeah.
Um, so as you know, I know we're running out of time here, but I do have one last question for you,
Yeah.
and kind of a fun one as far as if you're stuck on an island, right? And you've only got 3 movies you can bring with you. What 3 movies are you bringing with you?
Oh gosh. Oh man, that's tough. I mean, Remember the Titans is one of my favorite movies. With Denzel Washington. Definitely that's like one of my top like feel good inspirational movies. Inception is definitely one of
Mm,
my tops. that I've watched way too many times. And oh gosh, that's a hard one. Oh my gosh, that's tough.
We'll
Ah,
put a subject to change under it too, because if you're anything like me, my top three is rotates based on age, time, what's happening.
yes.
So
Yeah. I would say I don't think I had a horror in there, so I'll say Gothica. That's one of my favorite horrors. Yeah.
excellent. Well, I think that's a really great representation because you got a little bit something to get you happy and inspired, something to make you think, and then something to make you scream.
Yeah.
So it's
Perfect.
all the range of emotions. The inside out emotions are just losing it right now. So
Yeah.
well, Ashley, Lauren, this has been amazing. I really appreciate, you spending the time to have a conversation with me, but also just the vulnerability and kind of you're willing to share your experience with everyone on that's listening to this. And, if it's okay, I would love to share with our audience, the link to donate to the film.
Of
So if
course.
folks would like to support it, there's various different tiers. You can do something as small as $5, but if you really want to support the production, you can go up to 5,000. So, if you want that producer credit sooner rather than later, now's your
Yeah.
chance.
Yeah.
Get that IMDb going. But Ashley, Lauren, again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time for this. I look forward to all the films that you're working on as well as you'll be involved with, and I hope we get to see a couple of them over here at Macabre Daily.
Yes. Thank you so much, Matt. I appreciate it.